Hey, what is up everybody? It's Animac here for Anime Uproar, and the villains continue to rampage across the battlefields. And the heroes and hero students are fighting for their lives. Shigaraki is seemingly back at full power, his ability to use quirks restored. Deku is so tired that he's struggling to breathe, and Sad Man's parade just keeps getting sadder for the heroes. But there is one small bit of good news for the heroes. There is one tiny but important ray of hope in the darkness. And this one thing could change everything in the final battle, so let's get into it. You guys know the drill. If you enjoy our MHA content and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment right now. It only takes you a second, but it really helps us with that YouTube algorithm. And a quick reminder that over half of you guys who watch our videos are not yet subscribed. Subscribing is completely free, and it is a very real way of directly supporting the channel, so do me a favor and do it right now. Finally, this video will of course contain Boku no Hero manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. So in the previous chapter, we saw that the heroes and hero students at Gunga Mountain were stuck between a rock and a hard place. They found themselves between Dobby's deadly blue flames and an army of twice clones created by Toga when she initiated Sad Man's parade. The heroes were trying to retreat and escape the carnage as best they could, but it wasn't looking good. All for One tried to use the chaos on the battlefield to escape and get to Shigaraki, but he was stopped by Hawks. Despite already being injured, Hawks decided to do whatever it took to stop All for One from joining up with Shigaraki. Hawks could sense that there is a good reason why All for One needs to get to Shigaraki, and Hawks believes that if he can stop this reunion from happening, the heroes will likely have a much better chance of winning in the end. Since Hawks is already injured and exhausted, he knows full well that he is risking his life by confronting All for One, but he believes that it's worth it. If he can stall All for One for long enough, he might give the heroes at UA a fighting chance against Shigaraki. And even if Hawks has to pay for this with his life, he is happy to pay the price. Hawks has always been the type of hero who knows what has to be done and who is willing to do what it takes. If he has to take the life of another or even give up his own life, Hawks is willing to make that sacrifice. And this is what makes him such an interesting and memorable hero. At the end of the previous chapter, the big final battle between Dobby and Endeavor had just been set up. But before that fight can really begin, the latest chapter moves us away from the battle on Gunga Mountain and brings us back to Deku, Shigaraki, and the others at UA. The new chapter also continues with the theme of the previous few chapters, which is the fact that the hero's strategy for dividing the villains has failed. The villains managed to completely turn the tables on the heroes, and at this moment, they seem to have a decisive advantage on the battlefield. However, there is one tiny sliver of hope left for Deku and the heroes. Back at the UA, we see the newly opened portal that first appeared at the end of chapter 374. Aizawa sees Present Mike and Kurogiri emerging from the portal, and he knows right away that this isn't good. Moments later, one of the twice clones also emerges from the portal and rushes at Aizawa, Monoma, and Manuel. This clone then begins to multiply, and in a matter of seconds, the heroes are badly outnumbered. Aizawa and Manuel attempt to beat the clones back, but there are just too many of them, and the clones manage to tackle Monoma to the ground. In that moment, Monoma breaks eye contact with Shigaraki, and then in the very next moment, a giant explosion rocks the UA grounds. Those power poles that had been keeping the UA afloat and the force field in effect crumble into pieces. And suddenly, the UA building begins losing altitude. With so much damage to the power grid, the UA can't stay afloat anymore. And so, all the heroes and hero students who have been giving it their all to maintain the integrity of the floating UA are desperately trying to figure out what to do now. Now, there is some confusion with the translations, but to me it seems like the sudden failure of the UA system is the result of Skeptics' hacking efforts. At first I was thinking that maybe Shigaraki had used some sort of explosive quirk as soon as Monoma broke eye contact with him, but the chapter seems to be implying that Skeptics' hacking is at least partially to blame for what's going on. And not only has Skeptic been able to gain control over the UA system, but he has also gained control over the underground shelters where all the civilians are still hiding. Needless to say, things are not looking very daijobu for the heroes. But that is when the heroes find a small ray of hope as the epic battle between Deku and Shigaraki escalates. Shigaraki, the real Tomura Shigaraki, suddenly reappears. He sheds those strange finger mutations from his body, almost like a snake shedding its skin. And he then returns to his normal, slim form. By slim, I mean he still has muscles, but he's not like this grotesque bulge of different fingers that are all over his body. Shigaraki then asks Deku why he wanted to know whether he, Shigaraki, was still in there inside his own body. He tells Deku that his attempts to communicate with him are pointless because Deku is a hero and Shigaraki is his villain. But this brief exchange reveals a crucial piece of information to Deku. Tomura Shigaraki, aka Tenko Shimura, is indeed still there. In fact, not only is he still there, but he is actually able to somehow regain control from All For One. And even though Shigaraki himself is certainly no ally to the heroes, the fact that his personality is able to return confirms that All For One still hasn't managed to gain complete control over his new vessel. The heroes still have a chance to foil All For One's plans and prevent him from turning Shigaraki's body into the perfect new vessel for himself. That said, the path for bringing All For One down is not going to be an easy one, especially since Shigaraki himself is a villain through and through. Even if the heroes can prevent All For One from taking over Shigaraki's body, they will still have to defeat Tomura Shigaraki himself. That is challenging enough all on its own, but to make things worse, Deku is starting to feel the strain from overusing his newest quirk, Gear Shift. He's feeling tired, and he's worried that if he doesn't let his body rest, he soon won't even have enough energy to breathe on his own. But the second user of One For All and the original user of Gear Shift seems to be telling Deku that they can't quit just yet. Through the mysterious connection between All For One and One For All, the second user seems to confirm that All For One still doesn't have the ability to control Shigaraki's body. There is still a chance that the heroes can take Shigaraki out before All For One turns him into a perfect vessel for his own evil personality. But time is running out and Deku has to move now. There is no time to rest or think things through, it's time to act. As Skeptic continues hacking and interfering with the UA system, he is shocked to hear someone say, "Found you." This voice is coming from one of his own computer screens, and it says that finding Skeptic was difficult, but she was still able to do it for Gentle's sake. The final page reveals that best girl La Brava is back. Only this time, she is not working against the authorities, she is working with them. Her counterattack against Skeptics' hacking is being actively supervised by Detective Tsukauchi, and that is how this chapter ends. And there are some big takeaways from this chapter that we simply cannot ignore. First, the villains are definitely winning right now, and the heroes are likely to take some serious damage and maybe even suffer some serious casualties. That's because the villains are just so freaking strong right now. They got Dobby going berserk, they got Toga using Sadman's Parade, they got Prime All For One, and they got Shigaraki. All of these guys are absolute monsters, and on top of that, Deku is running out of steam. So we're about to witness a very tough period for the heroes. The good news for the heroes is that there is still time to stop All For One from taking complete control of Shigaraki. But with Shigaraki now presumably being able to use his quirks again, and with Deku clearly tired from using Gear Shift, how are the heroes going to stop Shigaraki before All For One arrives? Personally, I really enjoyed the return of La Brava. She's a really cool and memorable character, and bringing her in to virtually flex on Skeptic was a great idea. Frankly, I hope we get to see more epic character returns soon. I've been waiting so long to see Stain fighting alongside Deku against the villains. I thought we were gonna get that during Deku's little vigilante arc, but sadly we didn't. I'm still hoping that we will get to see something like this in the future, because Stain's character arc clearly isn't over yet, and he still has a lot that he could contribute to the story. But now, let's talk about the secret connection between All for One and One for All, and how this connection might affect the final battle. We know that All for One was actually used to create One for All in the first place, and the two quirks originally belonged to two brothers, so there is clearly an important connection between them. But the second user seems to be hinting at an even closer connection, and this is something that we got a preview of during the climax of the Jakku arc. The second user's Vestige seems to be able to sense who is really in control of Shigaraki's body and of the quirk All for One itself. This focus on the connection between All for One and One for All tells me that we are about to see a showdown in the Vestige world at some point in this final arc. While those main fights continue to rage outside, we may also get an internal battle of the Vestiges in the Vestige world that the two quirks have created. That is an entirely new battlefield that could be introduced into the story very soon. And this Vestige Battlefield would feature characters who have been long dead, like Nana and all the previous users of One for All, actively fighting against the Vestiges of All for One and Shigaraki as those guys attempt to steal One for All from Deku. This internal struggle will be especially important given what we just learned about Deku and how he's struggling just to keep breathing after seemingly overusing his newest quirk, Gear Shift. Is Deku pushing himself too far? And is he actually tearing himself apart from the inside because of his desire to defeat the villains and protect everyone? Is the connection between All for One and One for All going to get stronger during the final fight, which will allow both Deku and Shigaraki to access the Vestige world and engage in battle on yet another front? How will the already exhausted Deku deal with Shigaraki, who now presumably has full access to all his quirks once again? Will Deku's body be forced to evolve and attain quirk singularity, as I have theorized in the past? These are the big questions that I am wondering about as we wait for the next chapter to drop. Happy New Year's, everyone. I appreciate you watching our stuff, and don't miss this other video about how strong full power Shigaraki really is. The link is on screen right now and down in the description.